Hey everybody, my name is Christian, and I just got back from seeing Justice League. Now, I just got back from seeing Justice League, and I'll be honest, this is my first ever video review, so please bear with me. Hopefully I'll get better at it. I'm going to try making this video reviews and vlogging thing just a thing, because I like movies, and I like sharing my opinion on them, and I like discussing them. So, we're going to give this a shot, and I figured, why not start with a film that everyone's going to love and has zero controversy whatsoever. I'm sorry, what? Oh, this is Justice League. Fuck! Justice League is a film directed by Zack Snyder and I argue co-directed by Joss Whedon, who was in charge of all the rewrites, reshoots, and post-production after Snyder stepped down from the project. That is a follow-up to 2016's Batman v Superman, where we have Batman who is trying to live up to the sacrifice Superman made at the end of the last film by gathering a team of metahumans to fight off an invasion from a planet far away. Alright, so Justice League had a lot going against it. It had a lot going against it. There were things it had to do to make sure that it was a good movie. And there were things, like I said, that the cards were stacked against this movie. Zack Snyder, due to a terrible family tragedy, had to step down from the project. So they brought in Joss Whedon to not only reshoot a good chunk of the film, I would dare say like 60 to 65% of the film, but also he rewrote a good chunk of this movie. It's coming off of 3 divisive movies at best and 1 good movie. And I'm one of the people who I like the extended cut of Batman vs Superman, and I will defend Man of Steel until the day I die, but I'd be an idiot if I did not say that the majority of the DC films that have come out have been divisive. So, it had that, and then it had, like I said, the behind-the-scenes craziness, and then on top of that, it turns out that Zack wanted this movie to be like 2 hours and 45 minutes to 3 hours again, but Warner Brothers made a mandate where like the movie had to be 2 hours, which as I'll get into later, but that's something that I'm actually fine with. But again, when a person has a vision for a 3-hour-long film and the studio mandate is shed an hour off of what you wanted to do, you can understand how that adds even more difficulty to that. And you know what? Let's get into it. Okay, so the other thing that Justice League had to do was to be, in my opinion, a good movie was the characters needed to be done right. There had to be a tone correction because one of the biggest critiques that many of the fans who watched it were saying was the movies are too dark. They're too dark, they're too glum. Fix the tone. And by fixing the tone, they also had to bring hope for the future of this franchise. Like, we had to be guaranteed, look, I should be looking forward to Aquaman. I should be looking forward to Shazam. I should be looking forward to Wonder Woman 2. And in my honest opinion, Justice League did it. Yeah. I genuinely enjoyed Justice League. I walked out thinking that it was a very fun, enjoyable film, that it is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It is not perfect. And for the people who do not like this film, I can fully understand why you would not like this film. I personally walked out and I enjoyed it. I did walk out enjoying it. So the way I'm going to break this down now is I'm going to do the backwards to what most people who review films do. Instead of just saying what I liked about the film and then what I don't like, I don't want to end it on a negative note. I want to end it on a positive note. So I'm going to say the cons that I have for the movie, and then I'm going to go into the pros. So, con number 1. Dang, those visual effects. Yeah, the film needed more time. If you looked at the filming schedule, especially the reshooting schedule, you'd know that this film was finished worrisomely close to the release date. The visual effects, while not awful, I've been hearing people saying that the visual effects are awful. And I wouldn't say the visual effects are awful for the most part. For the most part, they're pretty good. But when it gets jarring, it gets pretty jarring. Cyborg CG kind of made it a little, it kind of pulled me out from time to time. just because unfortunately it was very much a floating head situation. And I think the reason is that the CG on Cyborg, it's on par with the Tony Stark armor. It is on par with the Tony Stark armor. The problem with Cyborg's, at least his rendering, is that you can see a human face. And Marvel has the same issue whenever Tony Stark takes off the helmet. It looks like a floating head with an animated body. The downside to Cyborg's design is he is a floating head on an animated body. I think when they did a lot of the close-up shots, they really should have tried their best to keep it practical. And I'm not a big, everything needs to be practical effects, but I am a firm believer of the Spielberg method, where if things are far away or you need to get a wide shot, use the CG, but when you're up close, if you can, use practical effects. So the CG wasn't that good in some aspects. The Henry Cavill lip, I was being told, is really, really bad. I was told, oh my gosh, the moment he speaks, you'll see how awful the animation on his lip is. It was bad maybe once or twice for me. Like when they really zoomed in on his face, that's when you saw it. But when there were mid shots and stuff like that, and he was just interacting with the team, it really didn't bother me. And I was looking for it too. I was looking, okay, how bad can this lip be? And it was all right. There were some very awkward parts, but for the time frame, I think they did the best they could. But the worst case of the CGI, and this is going to go to my next con, is Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf CG is bad. There's no getting around it. Steppenwolf looks like a video game boss, every time he's on the scene. It's more so it's the movements, how Steppenwolf moved. Because when you saw him, if you saw a still frame of Steppenwolf, he looked fine. But the issue was the animation. When he was moving, he looked fake. It was really notable when he spoke, because when a person speaks, even if you're an alien, when the person speaks, every part of their face moves. The eyebrows emote with you. The lips, will adjust when you're enunciating. Your cheeks raise and go down, and your jaw follows. When Steppenwolf talked, "You shall not defeat me, Justice League. This world will come to an end. Primitive beings." There was it was just mouth movement. Nothing else moved with him, so it looked really fake. And again, I think that was one of the things that was unfortunately put on the chopping block when they had to meet this deadline to finish the film. Steppenwolf is also a very basic villain, which for some could be bad, for others it could be good. I think he served his purpose. He is very straightforward. He's coming to Earth to take over the world. There's a little bit more to it. They do explain why Steppenwolf wants to conquer the Earth, why he's so obsessed with gathering the mother boxes, and why he's obsessed with particularly conquering this planet. But it's very quick, and like I said, it's very quick and it's very straightforward. Steppenwolf is here because he wants to conquer the world. And that's really his motivation. It's his motivation. It is what drives the plot of the film. He was just very boring. He had a few good lines, but he was just a very boring villain. If I could find an equivalent, is Malekith from Thor: The Dark World. Malekith had nothing going for him. Very boring, very straightforward. I want to come back and take over the world. That's Steppenwolf. He is on par with Malekith, and that's not good. He served his purpose, but I would have liked for them to flesh him out more. And that goes into another con I have. The Jack Kirby mythology of the new god, Steppenwolf, the parademons, and everything. I don't think so much they failed the mythology that Jack Kirby wrote. It just feels like they could have analyzed it and done so much more, not just in terms of story, but also in terms of design. But this is also me coming off of just seeing Thor Ragnarok, which was straight Jack Kirby, and I loved it. It showed me, you can take Jack Kirby's wonky designs with, computer chip armor, that's what I always called it, the computer chip armor, and making it real and making it look threatening, to say the least. So I did find it unfortunate that Steppenwolf and the Jack Kirby mythology wasn't so much bastardized, but wasn't really given the love that it deserved. That was very unfortunate for me. The final con I have for it is, it's both a con and not a con, but for some I could understand it being a problem. The story is very, basic. It is a very straightforward story. Batman is following up with the visions he was having in Batman vs. Superman. Something is coming. Something is happening. There's going to be an invasion, and I need to gather warriors to stop it. The movie starts with him doing that. He is investigating. He is seeing signs that that vision he had is happening. And that starts, and then immediately after, Steppenwolf shows up. The League has to come together after Steppenwolf shows up. They need to fight Steppenwolf. They need to stop his goal, and they need to save the day. That is the plot. There's no crazy interwoven meanings or anything like that. It is very much point A, point B, point C, and that's it. It is very straightforward, and for some people that will come off as boring. For me, I was never bored during the movie. There were some scenes that I do think could have been cut out, and that's the other thing. I've been seeing a lot of people saying that the film should have been longer. Like, they should have kept with Zack Snyder's original 2-hour, 45-minute to 3-hour mark. I actually think the length was fine. I think that you could have just taken some scenes out. There's a particular scene with Lois and Martha Kent that did absolutely nothing for the film whatsoever. I honestly felt that they put the scene in just to remind you, hey, Lois Lane exists, and so does Martha. It took me out of the film throwing in those scenes. So I would actually say there were scenes you could have cut from this film and to make it shorter, or you could have taken those scenes out and maybe have put more in to help with the pacing. Because I think the pacing was fine. The movie's very lean and straight to the point, but I will say that there are moments where it jumped a little too fast. So maybe some cleaner transitions would have definitely helped. In the very beginning, the editing's a little wonky, and you can tell it's because the film is transitioning from being a Zack Snyder movie to a Joss Whedon movie. And I've been hearing some people saying, "Oh, I don't see it. I don't see the transition. It looks like it was made by One Direction." No, because in the very beginning of the movie, there are very dark and dour scenes. And I know the reasoning for it was that the film was trying to show you, oh, the world's come to shit because Superman's not around. And I get it, but like I said, a lot of it was very dark. But then almost right before the second act starts, the pace starts going more positive. The pacing starts getting more clean cut, and it overall just feels like the first 20 minutes of this film do not feel like a Joss Whedon film. They feel like a Zack Snyder film. But then after that 20 minutes, you feel Joss's hands all over this movie, which is both good and bad. Because some of the jokes land, and they're not Zack Snyder jokes, they are Joss Whedon jokes. Well, some of the jokes don't. Some of them were a little awkward. But overall, the writing is okay. It's nothing special. And the plot is very straightforward, which unfortunately makes it forgettable. So, you've heard my problems with the movie. So, what did I like about the movie? The main thing that I really liked about this film was the team dynamic. You got the sense that while this team is trying to deal with these problems, they are forming a connection with each other, and they are building each other up. There is some major scenes with Batman and Wonder Woman, both with them coming together and also bumping heads with each other. And that's the thing I actually liked. When the team bumped heads, it felt justified. It felt really necessary. And when there were times when they came together, and it felt deserved. It felt really well deserved. I love Avengers. I think Avengers is a better movie than this movie. But one of the things I think that this movie actually did better was the dynamic of the team. Even by the end of Avengers, when Steve is out there giving the orders to everyone, you can tell it's out of necessity. It's not out of a friendship yet. You see by Avengers 2 that friendship has been built. But for the first Avengers, the team dynamic is very much a team dynamic made from necessity. They need to get over their bullshit so that they can fight Loki and the Chitauri. In Justice League, there are fights within the team with each other. Aquaman, worried that Cyborg may be a double agent. And also, Aquaman just not trusting most of the team. Flash, with his naivete. He's new to this. He has never really done anything outside of stopping some robbers. He hasn't really done anything substantial just yet. Batman, trying to basically show that he was worthy of Superman's sacrifice in Batman vs. Superman. And Wonder Woman trying to still get herself back into the world after the events of both Wonder Woman and Batman vs. Superman. So that was one of the highlights for me. I thought the team dynamic was great. I thought when they bumped heads, it was necessary. And when they came together, it was well-deserved and well-earned. And that was the other thing. Not just the team dynamics to me were good, but I loved the individual characters. And that was a big one for me. I really wanted Justice League to nail the characters. And if there's one thing you can walk away with liking, it was they got them. They nailed them. Batman has developed since Batman vs. Superman, like I said previously. He is trying to come to terms with, like I said, he's trying to prove that he is worthy of the sacrifice Superman made. He is no longer as extreme as he was in Batman vs. Superman. He's very much just trying to do right. Wonder Woman is great. Her and Batman have like this really interesting story arc where they're basically, it's a very small story arc, but it is there where they are basically trying to say which one, essentially, who's in charge here? And like, are you going to take the lead or am I going to take the lead? So their dynamic and like their individual arcs were great. Flash was hilarious. I know a lot of people said they didn't like how jokey he was, but all the Flashes to an extent in the comics have been funny. Wally West was the funniest one, I will admit. But Barry Allen had jokes, and they also take the time to establish that this is a Barry Allen who's maybe has been active as the Flash for like a little under a year. And I know a lot of people are comparing it to Grant Gustin's Flash and everything. I personally don't watch The Flash. I've been told it's a good show, but I have no comparison to be able to build upon. So, in my opinion, Ezra Miller did great. Ezra Miller did what he had to do. He was the comic relief. He was also the newbie on the team. Aquaman, I really liked. I really liked Aquaman. I liked Jason Momoa's take on Aquaman. It very much felt like the Justice League cartoons Aquaman, but at the very early stages in his career. He's just doing what he thinks is right, but he doesn't really want to worry about other people. He just wants to do him, and if someone needs some help along the way, he'll help them out. So I really liked him. I was worried that the surfer bro mentality was going to like shine through more so because the trailers kind of made it seem like it with the my man and yeah! But they actually showed that he there was more to him than that. And it was very much, he's the bad boy loner of the group. Before I go forward, Cyborg. I liked Cyborg a lot. I was worried that he wasn't going to have much to do because just because of the star power he was with. It was Henry Cavill, Ezra Miller, Gal Gadot, and Jason Momoa, and then you have Ray Fisher, who is, I don't want to say he's a no-name, but he's a Broadway actor. This is his first major film. Now, don't get me wrong, Broadway actors are amazing. They are if you get a Broadway actor in your film, expect a good performance. And that's what we got. We got a great performance. He actually has a lot more range than people are letting on. And it really is, it's in the power of his subtleties. He has a lot of subtle moments. And I'm not going to spoil it, but there is something that Cyborg is known for saying, and I will tell you that, don't worry, he says it. He does say it, and I loved it. It made me happy. There is no spoilers in saying this, because if you did not know this, then you've been living under a rock since Batman vs. Superman. Superman is in this movie. And I cannot stress how great he is in this movie. The people who did not like what Zack Snyder or DC has been doing with Superman in Man of Steel or in Batman vs. Superman, I thoroughly believe that this is the Superman you've been waiting for. And overall, this film was what they did with Superman felt like a well-deserved reward. It was the culmination of everything Superman had to deal with, all the way back to Man of Steel, where he's a man just trying to figure out his place, not just in the world, because after he finds out what he is, where he belongs in the universe. Who has two fathers with very conflicting ideals as to what he should do. to then go to Batman vs Superman, where he's chosen to be this hero for the people, but half the world is afraid of him, half the world hates him, but in the end, he still saves, and he gives his life to save them. Though, and when he finally comes back, they make a point to say he doesn't know what he should do now. But then he realizes that, no, I have to do this. And he comes and he helps and he does great. And there are scenes that are wonderful with him. I will say, I should throw this in the cons, I'm not the biggest fan of how they brought him back. It was very much a little too easy, in my opinion. Especially because, I think I don't like it because Batman vs. Superman implied something completely different than what they did. So that was unfortunate, but still, overall, everything they did with Superman, I very much enjoyed. I very much liked a lot. The tone was a major improvement to people who complained that the tone was too dark. I was fine with the tone of both Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. I was fine with the tone for Suicide Squad, and I was fine with the tone with Wonder Woman. I never really thought DC's problem was a tone problem. I thought DC's problems were a writing and an editing problem. But they do give you that lighter tone. And it does work. It does work. I felt like I was watching the almost like a remake of the pilot to the Justice League cartoon. And like I said, where there were serious moments, but also it was lighthearted. There were jokes that and it wasn't just Barry that was making jokes. Superman has a funny joke. Batman's got a good couple laughs in him. Aquaman has a really funny scene. Cyborg's got a good joke. They did really good with the tone in Superman and just the tone of the movie in general. Also, something I really want to press is there are end credit scenes. Don't be like the millions of friggin' people who go to these superhero movies and walk out on the credits. There were end credit scenes. There are two. There's a mid one, which is a fun one. It's a funny one. And then there is the last one at the very end. And oh boy, is it worth it. It is so worth it. Stay till the end credits. Do yourself a service. Overall, I think Justice League was a major step in the right direction. This movie is a mixed bag. I will not lie about that. There are some bad things about this movie. Like I said, the visual effects are subpar. The villain is not that good, and his effects are subpar. And the story is very basic. I don't want to say boring, but there's nothing new. It didn't bring anything new to the storytelling table of superhero movies. It is a very straightforward story that we've heard before. Villain comes from space, wants to take over the world. However, I am a firm believer that the good things from Justice League, the team dynamic, the individual characters, the lighter tone, the overall closing of Zack Snyder's story of Superman. Because it is what it feels like. It feels like the closing of a hero's journey. And now we're looking forward to what comes next for it. And that's the thing. It gave me hope for the future. It gave me hope for what the Aquaman movie is going to do. It brought me hope for what Flashpoint's going to do. I'm excited to see Shazam and Wonder Woman 2, because from what we've been hearing, with the exception of Wonder Woman 2, all these films are going to take place right after Justice League in the story canon. So I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I walked in thinking I was only going to like it, and I think that's because critics and everyone's reviews that out of my friends, it hampered my expectations a bit. I was expecting an okay movie. I walked out thoroughly enjoyed and thoroughly pleased. If I had to rate this film, I would give it an 8 out of 10. People who know me, an 8 out of 10 is usually what I give most of the Marvel movies. With the exceptions of the really good ones. I rarely save 9s or 10s for anything unless it's really good. For me, 8 it's as good as the basic superhero movies are. Which, in and of itself, is not good. And that's why we're going into this next part. Whether I like the movie or not is inconsequential. because there's no way to put it. If you follow movie sites, if you follow box office sites, there's no nice way to spin this. Justice League bombed. It made under $100 million. There's no nice way to put it. That means Justice League is a disaster of a film. Maybe not critically, maybe not in terms of like how the movie actually is, but financially, this movie, it failed. Yes, it's still out for another 5 weeks, but a movie makes the majority of its money its opening weekend, and it didn't even hit 100 million. This is a movie that should have easily hit the 130 million mark. There were a few causes for this that I think you can point at. The big one, for me at least, is this movie came out after 4 other movies, and of those 4 movies, 3 were divisive at best. Some people just downright hate them. And the movie audience can only be tricked so many times before they decide, I don't want to give you my money anymore. Look at Transformers. Look at the past 2 Transformers movies. They made money, but you see significant drops because Paramount and Michael Bay kept pushing out crap after crap after crap. And the audience caught on. So, unfortunately, you had very divisive films with only one of your 4 previous films being considered good. So, you have the audience who does not like it. You have the audience who does not like being tricked. They don't want to spend the cinema money to go see it in theaters. I know tons of people who are looking forward to seeing the movie, but they're waiting for it to go on online. They don't want it. To them, they don't think it's going to be good enough to see in the theater, which is unfortunate. The other culprit, I believe, is unfortunately again Zack Snyder. Because of the 3 films, including this film, that were divisive or negatively received, Zack Snyder had his hands in them. I don't know what it is, but the audience doesn't like him. I can say how much I like the Batman vs. Superman director's cut. I can say how much I like Man of Steel. I can say how much I enjoyed Suicide. No, what am I kidding? No, nobody enjoyed Suicide Squad. But the point of the matter is, anything that Zack touches, unfortunately, does not work in DC. At least from a financial standpoint, it does not work. And the final point, and this is a big one that I fully blame Warner Brothers for this. The marketing for this movie was awful. It was awful. I don't have cable. I've asked my friends and my family who do have cable, hey, have you guys seen any ads for Justice League? Nope. They see maybe 1 or 2 like TV spots a day. And then when you're like me, you're a person who watches most of his stuff online. You do it through YouTube or HBO Go or any other video viewing site. I saw no ads for Justice League until the week of the movie. The week of the movie, I started seeing ads show up on YouTube for Justice League. That is terrible. I knew people who forgot the movie was coming out this week. That is an awful marketing. And on top of that, you also hit the fact that Superman was in the movie. We all knew Superman was going to be in the movie. You didn't need to hide him in the ads. You didn't need to show us how he came back. But you could have assured people, Superman's here, guys. And that's the big problem. If your marketing is bad, no one's going to know your movie's going to come out, or the people that do know your movie's going to come out are going to forget that your movie's coming out. You need to remind people of your product. The average customer is not an idiot, but the average customer does need a reminder. I'm annoyed that this movie bombed because even if you look at the negative reviews, both negative and positive reviews, I looked at them all. If you look at both the positive and the negative reviews, they're not that far apart from each other. Many of the negatives that the positive reviews give them are the same negatives that the negative reviews give each other. But there's one sentence that I always see in both the positive and the negative reviews. That this movie was a step in the right direction. DC and Warner Brothers were going in the right direction. We were going in the direction that leads to positive reviews going to constantly come to these films. But the difference between the two is, for the negative reviews, it wasn't a further enough step in the right direction to sway them in the opinion that they liked the film. For the positive reviews, it was a big enough step. But, like I said, with both the negative and the positive reviews, step in the right direction. Warner Brothers will no longer care about that one comment because this movie is not going to make them money. There is a good chance that this film is not going to make them money. If they break even, that's fine. They'll make their money back. I do not see, with these numbers, I don't see Justice League making Warner Brothers a profit. Which is ridiculous for me to think of because this is this is DC's Avengers. This was the original Avengers. These have the three most iconic characters in superhero, in pop culture. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It had the Holy Trinity. It's the same thing with Batman vs. Superman. These should be billion-dollar movies. But they're not. And even though this film was a step in the right direction, it is not going to make them any money whatsoever. So the question goes now, what's Warner Brothers going to do? What are they going to do? They can't stop Aquaman. Aquaman's production's done. The reshoots are still scheduled, but the production's done. Like, they're going into post. What does this mean for Shazam? They got the cast lined up. The script's apparently been written. They were aiming to start production next year, so that for a 2019 release. I now don't know if Shazam's going to happen. Wonder Woman 2 might still happen because Wonder Woman was their best movie so far, but even that's in question now. Because not even Wonder Woman could apparently save this film. So, this leads to a big, scary what if. I would not be surprised if we hear within a few weeks, if not a month, major shifts to the plan. Major shifts to the plan. I wouldn't be surprised if directors or storytellers leave. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Reeves' Batman movie is its own canon. If it has nothing to do with this DC Extended Universe. And like I said, what makes this so heartbreaking is that this film, while for the most part considered lukewarm at best, was universally agreed to be the right step, to be the right move. I honestly don't know what they're going to do. I think that they're making good choices now, but I really don't know what DC has planned after this. Like I said, don't be surprised if you start hearing some big moves being made within like 6 weeks to a month. So yeah, that got a little sad. Damn it. For a positive review, that got pretty sad. So, oh, the camera's moved. Stay still. So this is my Justice League review / analysis of the box office. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed the film. I don't think it deserves the hate it gets. Like I said, the hate. The negative reviews it gets, I would understand why people don't like the film. But for me, the good outweighed the bad. I'm probably going to see it again. I liked it. And that's really the best I could say. But what I'm going to end this with is, what did you guys think about it? Like I said, film's subjective. If you didn't like it, that's fine. If you loved it, that's fine. If you just thought it was okay, that's fine. But tell me what you thought, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!